Remember the good old days, back when you could stumble into a world boss with a random team of your favorites and actually win? Whether it was in the overworld or the abyss, things felt fair. Well, welcome to the current landscape of Genshin Impact, where every new boss is a blatant character check. We've reached a point in Natlan and Nod Krai where if you don't have the specific gimmick counter, you're just waiting to get one-shotted. It's becoming pretty obvious that the devs want us to pull the latest banner just to have a decent time in the endgame. So today, I'm ranking every world boss from these two regions. We're looking at design, fun factor, and putting them all through the Eula Stress Test. Why? Because she's been collecting dust since forever, and if she can survive these bosses, anyone can. A quick caveat, these are manageable in the overworld, but for this list, we're using the power of imagination to simulate the Stygian Experience. Massive HP, instant gimmicks, 0 energy, and a 90-second timer. The tiers. S. Eula approved. Genuine fun, good design. A. Fair fight. Doable with any decent DPS. B. Skill issue speedrun. Brute forceable if you have the hands for it. C. Wallet check. Bring the new character or bring your credit card. D. I'd rather replay the R&R quest. I think we all know what this means. First up, the Qucusaur Tyrant. It's fine. The main hurdle is that pyro shield. If you can't snap it out of the air, you're in for a long day. This is where Farina's auto-aim Salon members carry the fight. They follow the boss into the air, and her cute companions can easily deal with it. Without the shield down, Eula is just hitting a brick wall. In a Stygian setting, this would be a restart-heavy mess. Brute forceable, yes. Clean? Absolutely not. B tier. Honestly, this is what a well-made boss looks like. Straightforward, fairly easy, but properly crafted. Its attacks are telegraphed, but hit hard enough that dodging actually matters, and it functions as a solid DPS check without being unreasonable about it. It's geared towards pyro characters, but any decent DPS will beat it without much trouble. It's not particularly special or memorable, quite tame really, but given what else is on this list, tame is a compliment. No issues here. She clearing it without breaking a sweat. This should be the baseline, A tier. This one is okay for the most part, but it has an insta-kill gimmick that requires you to climb or jump onto the pillars to deal with it. If you aren't playing a Natlan character or someone with a vertical mobility kit, you're left scrambling and inevitably eating the one-shot. Eula has no vertical mobility tools to speak of. You can try to iframe it or run away, but it highlights how lazy climb this or die mechanics feel for 90% of the roster. The concept is genuinely strong. On paper, a boss that mimics the Mago Kenki or Primordial Vishap sounds cool, but this thing is genuinely the scum of the earth. It has an insta-kill gimmick where you need to fill up the Void Ward bar with quick elemental reaction hits or Night Soul attacks. The ward has over 50 hits of durability, but Night Soul aligned attacks remove 3 charges at once. The Natlan bias is already there. What's worse is that it is not even that good at shilling Natlan characters. Someone like Farissa, who doesn't have fast-paced attacks, doesn't clear its Void Ward consistently. If you strip all the words away, this is just a Chaska shield boss. If you somehow survive without clearing the gimmick, the boss just sits at 80% resistance. 80%. Eula has no Night Soul access, no elemental reactions worth mentioning, and no shortcuts. She can technically get through it in the overworld, but it's not a good time. In any real endgame setting, she is definitely cooked. D tier, and it's not even close. The Wayward Hermetic Spiritspeaker is actually pretty interesting. She is the first human-type world boss Genshin has had in a while, and her combat style reflects that. She uses a brush to draw dangerous, colorful spells, which gives her a visually distinctive moveset that feels different from the usual monster fights. She summons cryo clones and hides among them, and the goal is to take them all out using pyro attacks while dealing with how quickly they move. Can get chaotic and hard to read at times. Using masters of the Nightwing characters like Citlali or Auron can freeze the clone's movement, which is another Night Soul advantage, but she isn't gated behind it. Any pyro character, even without Malvika, can get through this without much grief. The clone chaos is a bit annoying without a pyro character in Eula's team, but she cleared this fine. The boss's quick movements are more of an inconvenience than a wall. A tier. On paper, this looks like a hard wallet check. It has 70% resistance to all attacks in its base form, and is clearly designed with Pyro Natlan characters in mind. Or should I say, Malvika and Kinich Burning teams. That's the expectation going in, but it's actually quite beatable with characters you probably already have. Zhangming, Bennett, and a solid DPS on top of that is enough to work with it. This isn't really a new character check, so much as an elemental check, which is a more reasonable ask. You can brute force your way through it, no right from the sky required. Eula didn't really have a tough time with this in the overworld, which says a lot given the resistance. In real endgame, you'd want a pyro forward team, but as a design, it's at least fair about what it's asking for. B tier. This boss goes head to head with the Tenebrous Papilla for who can claim the title of worst designed or most annoying boss on the list. Trash versus garbage. This is a cryo check, or more specifically, a Skirk and Escoffier check. If you see this in endgame, and you don't have a premium cryo team, you are cooked. There's not much more to say about it. Eula is cryo, so you'd think she'd have an easier time here. She does not in any real endgame scenario. The specificity of what this boss wants goes beyond just cryo. D tier. Now, Natlan was annoying, but at least every regional character has Night Soul. Nod Krai is where the gating gets real. Lunar reactions are essentially locked behind limited 5 stars. I know the free 4-star given at the start can't even trigger Lunar Charged, despite being a Hydro character from the region. I probably wouldn't have pulled Inefa on her rerun if that weren't the case. I guess the current Genshin business model was working. This is a visually striking boss. The core mechanic is interesting. It afflicts you in a radiant cocoon debuff that drops your crit rate by 100%, your damage bonus by 50%, and your incoming healing bonus by 40%. To get out, you need to be healed back to full HP, at which point you gain a buff that temporarily boosts your crit rate and damage. It's a mechanic that actually rewards having a healer, which Genshin doesn't always encourage. The debuff is punishing though, and without a solid sustain, the fight drags on longer than it needs to. You'll die a few times figuring it out. Eula got through it, but the cocoon mechanic slowed things down significantly, and without a dedicated healer in the team, it would be much harder, doable but not comfortable. B tier. A duck-shaped combat machine built from scrap metal, powered by Kuvaki, created by Aino. It calls you companion. The lore integration alone is charming enough to get some goodwill from me before the fight even starts. Now let's be clear, this is unapologetically a lunar charge shield boss. You can squeak by with regular electro charge reactions, but having Inefa or Flins makes this a completely different experience. That's the same problem almost every other boss on this list has. But here's the thing, I genuinely enjoy fighting this boss. I don't say that about many of them. Dodging its attacks is fun, the design is memorable, and the whole thing just has a personality that most bosses on this list don't really have. So I'm closing one eye and putting it at the top. Maybe I was hoodwinked by the duck imagery. I can live with that. Eula approved, literally. She cleared it in the overworld without too much trouble. She'd realistically struggle in an endgame setting, but this boss earns its S tier on design alone. A winged Pegasus typed monster that mixes close range and long range cryo attacks. Visually, it fits Nod Krai well. The most interesting mechanic here is the gloom-veiled phase, where it absorbs whichever element dealt it the most damage, meaning you have to be deliberate about how you distribute your damage types. If you fill the gloom-veiled gauge, the boss becomes permanently immune to that element for the rest of the fight, which can punish mono-element teams or anyone who didn't read the mechanic carefully, myself included. It's not the most infuriating boss on this list. I wouldn't rage quit over it, but the two-tier experience between lunar characters and everyone else is clear, and in any serious endgame content, you're going to feel that gap. The gloom-veiled phase creates some awkward moments, but Eula got through it. Not a rage quit boss, just an annoying one without the right setup. This is a Duran shill, plain and simple. If you aren't running Pyro, you're dealing with a massive resistance penalty, and even Pyro teams without Duran aren't particularly amazing against it. It's a functional fight, nothing creative about it, and the design intent is pretty transparent. Eula felt the resistance penalty. She can get through it in the overworld, but it's a slog, and in the endgame, she'd be at a real disadvantage. The regional gating here is about as explicit as it gets. Lunar teams make this fight dramatically easier, and the boss makes no attempt to hide that. I hate this boss with every fiber of my being, and I especially hate the abyss chickens it summons. It also has a one-shot attack tied to filling up a bar, which predictably is so much easier to do with lunar reactions. No lunar access, no shortcuts. Eula gets through in the overworld version, but it's miserable. In Endgame, this is a forfeit if you don't have the right characters. The Radiant Moon Gecko sits in the same conversation as the Radiant Moonfly, and it's not quite as bad. Its attacks are easier to read and dodge, which takes some pressure off. The debuff is still brutal, same punishing cocoon mechanic, but with a healer and anyone who can break the Geo Shield. This is very doable. Even Eula can handle that shield. Eula broke the Geo Shield just fine with their Claymore. I could genuinely see Eula clearing this in Stygian or Abyss Floor 12. The debuff is the only real obstacle here, and the healer easily handles that. B tier. Endgame bosses are becoming blatant cash grabs. The design loop is transparent at this point. Create a problem, sell the solution, and a limited 5-star banner. It's a shame because the craft is there, the animations and the lore are better than ever, but good design stops being challenging and starts being a storefront when you can't beat it with 90% of the characters you already own. Then again, maybe it's just a skill issue on my part. Maybe I'm just a gacha player who can't read. I should be able to solo all of this with a level 1 Dull Blade, right? Let me know which boss makes you want to rage quit in the comments. Subscribe for more gacha suffering, and I'll see you in the next one.